The landscape of modern relationships is quietly undergoing one of the most radical transformations in generations. Yet the shift is not happening in the realm of romance, but rather in the cold, hard numbers of personal finance. For decades, the traditional blueprint of marriage dictated that two separate lives became one single entity, a union formalized not just by a marriage certificate, but by a joint bank account. It was an unquestioned milestone of adulthood, a symbolic merging of destinies where individual financial identities were voluntarily surrendered in the name of love and mutual trust. Today, however, that foundational pillar of marital unity is being actively dismantled by a growing number of couples who argue that financial codependency is no longer a romantic ideal but a recipe for systemic domestic tension. As economic pressures mount and personal autonomy becomes a defining cultural value, the decision to keep money entirely separate is moving from a taboo alternative to a mainstream strategy for relationship survival. What begins as a practical logistical choice often uncovers deep-seated differences in upbringing, personal values, and psychological security that can either fortify a partnership or completely shatter it from within. To understand why this shift is happening now, we have to look closely at the hidden frictions that quietly erode even the most passionate unions when financial boundaries are completely erased. If you find these deep dives into the realities of modern society compelling, please take a brief moment to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming investigative reports. The tension often starts small, disguised as minor disagreements over daily expenditures or differing philosophies on saving for an unpredictable future. One partner might view money as a tool for immediate experience and lifestyle enjoyment, while the other sees it strictly as a shield against potential catastrophe, hoarding resources with a frugality born of past economic instability. When these opposing mindsets are forced to coexist within a single shared account, every transaction becomes a potential point of conflict, a silent judgment passed from one spouse to the other. The act of checking a bank statement transforms from a routine administrative task into an emotional minefield, where a simple purchase can trigger feelings of resentment, control, and a distinct loss of personal freedom. Financial experts are increasingly observing that the psychological burden of having to justify every personal expense to a partner can create an undercurrent of hostility that slowly poisons daily communication. This is precisely why a new generation of married couples is choosing a completely different path, maintaining absolute financial independence while living under the same roof. They argue that separating their wealth does not signify a lack of commitment, but rather a sophisticated understanding of human nature and a desire to eliminate the primary catalyst for marital arguments before it even has a chance to surface. Yet, while this approach promises harmony, it simultaneously introduces a complex web of new questions regarding equity, fairness, and the very definition of partnership. How do two people fairly distribute collective household expenses when their individual earning capacities are vastly unequal? And what happens to the concept of mutual support when one partner faces a sudden financial crisis? These questions become even more volatile when viewed through the lens of public perception and the intense scrutiny that high-profile figures face when their career choices and personal partnerships collide in the public arena. The public demands a perfect narrative of unity and success, yet behind closed doors, the mechanics of maintaining that image are incredibly fragile. When an individual attempts to navigate the demands of a high-stakes industry while balancing personal values and relationships, a single misstep can trigger an avalanche of criticism that threatens both their professional standing and personal stability. We see this play out repeatedly in the fast-paced world of digital media and sports, where sudden success brings immense financial rewards but also exposes individuals to relentless public judgment. The pressure to conform to societal expectations, whether in how one manages a marriage or how one conducts themselves in a professional role, creates an environment where boundaries are constantly tested, and the line between public performance and private reality becomes dangerously blurred. As we peel back the layers of these modern dynamics, it becomes clear that the choices couples make about independence and shared responsibilities are never just about the money itself, but about power, control, and the desperate search for autonomy in an increasingly demanding world. The traditional models are cracking under the weight of modern economic realities, leaving individuals to forge their own paths through a landscape filled with hidden risks and unpredictable outcomes. The delicate balance between maintaining individual autonomy and fulfilling public expectations becomes terrifyingly visible when the spotlight of modern celebrity culture is turned on. When a person's entire career is built on public perception, a single moment of perceived arrogance or misalignment with an audience can lead to swift and devastating professional consequences, highlighting the precarious nature of sudden fame in the digital era. This exact phenomenon recently played out in the high-stakes world of sports entertainment, centering around the rapidly rising digital influencer and media personality Addison Rae. Known globally for her meteoric rise on short-form video platforms, Rae had successfully parlayed her massive internet following into a mainstream media presence, culminating in a highly publicized appointment as a special correspondent for the Ultimate Fighting Championship, or UFC. For an industry deeply rooted in a traditional, fiercely loyal, and often cynical fan base, the introduction of a mainstream digital creator to handle official broadcasting duties was already a controversial move that drew skepticism from hardcore sports analysts and fans alike. The situation escalated into a full-blown public relations crisis, following a single, highly scrutinized social media post by Rae that ignited an immediate and intense backlash across the sports community. In the offending tweet, which was quickly labeled by critics as deeply disrespectful and obnoxious, she casually joked about her sudden employment by stating she had studied broadcast journalism for a mere 3 months in college to land the high-profile gig. To the thousands of professional journalists, commentators, and dedicated writers who spend decades working in obscurity, scraping through low-paying regional markets, and accumulating massive educational debt just for a chance to pitch a story to a major network. The comment felt like a direct insult to their entire profession. The sports community viewed the statement not as a harmless, self-deprecating joke, but as a glaring manifestation of unearned privilege and a textbook example of how modern digital metrics are prioritizing raw follower counts over genuine technical expertise, dedication, and professional merit. The reaction was swift, severe, and utterly unyielding, as sports fans, professional athletes, and seasoned media personnel unified in their condemnation of the casting choice, filling digital spaces with intense criticism. Recognizing the severe damage being done to their brand integrity and the deep alienation of their core audience, the executives at the UFC acted with remarkable speed, quietly terminating the partnership and removing Rae from her broadcasting duties before she could even firmly establish her presence on the official airwaves. This dramatic and rapid fall from a prestigious corporate partnership perfectly illustrates the volatile dynamics of modern media infrastructure, where corporate entities are eager to exploit the massive audience reach of internet celebrities, but will instantly sever ties the exact moment that same audience turns hostile. It exposes a fundamental tension in contemporary entertainment. The desperate corporate race for digital engagement frequently clashes with the deeply held values and expectations of traditional fan bases who demand authenticity and respect for the craft. The incident served as a stark public reminder that digital influence is an incredibly fragile form of currency that can vanish in an instant when stripped of its native context and forced into established professional institutions. As the dust settled on this corporate controversy, the broader conversation shifted toward the psychological toll of such rapid public rejection and how individuals navigate the sudden transition from universal praise to widespread vileness. This boundary between professional performance and public hostility is not unique to the entertainment industry. It extends into the parallel world of elite international sports, where the pressures are magnified by national pride and intense geopolitical identity. The transition from being a celebrated national hero to becoming the target of vicious personal attacks is a trajectory that many elite athletes have had to navigate under the intense glare of the global media landscape. When the stakes involve national representation on the grandest stages of international competition, the emotional investment of the public can warp from passionate support into something deeply toxic and destructive within a matter of minutes. This darker side of public passion was put on full, agonizing display following the conclusion of the Euro 2020 Soccer Championship, an event that pushed national anxieties and social fractures to their absolute limits. The English national soccer team had marched through the tournament, carrying the immense psychological weight of a nation that had experienced decades of championship drought, with millions of citizens projecting their hopes of cultural and athletic redemption onto a group of young, elite athletes. The atmosphere leading up to the final match was electric, a collective fever pitch of anticipation that united the country in a rare moment of shared optimism. However, when the match ultimately culminated in a heartbreaking defeat during a tense, high-pressure penalty shootout, the fragile illusion of national unity dissolved almost instantly, giving way to an outpouring of raw hostility. Instead of receiving constructive athletic criticism or collective grief for a hard-fought campaign, several young members of England's national team were immediately subjected to an overwhelming wave of targeted racist vitriol across every major digital platform. The digital space transformed overnight into an aggressive archive of bigotry, as frustrated fans sought scapegoats for the national athletic failure, directing their anger specifically at black players who had missed their penalty shots during the final, crucial moments of the match. The sheer volume and speed of the abuse shocked international observers and forced major social media conglomerates, sports governing bodies, and highest-level political figures to issue immediate statements of condemnation. Yet, the systemic nature of the response revealed a deeper, more disturbing truth about modern cultural dynamics. For minoritized individuals in high-stakes positions, acceptance by the dominant culture is often entirely conditional on flawless performance and absolute victory. The moment failure occurs, the protective veneer of celebrity and national representation is stripped away, exposing the raw, underlying prejudices that continue to simmer beneath the surface of modern society. This painful episode forced a profound re-examination of the ethical responsibilities of digital platforms in policing hate speech, the psychological support structures required to protect young professionals from digital mobs, and the true cost of operating in the public eye. The intersection of athletic performance, national identity, and digital anonymity has created a hyper-reactive environment where individuals are constantly forced to balance their professional ambitions against the very real threat of personal psychological destruction. The severe fallout from the Euro 2020 Championship final brought global attention to a trio of young English athletes who found themselves at the very epicenter of this digital storm: Bukayo Saka, Marcus Rashford, and Jadon Sancho. To understand the gravity of what occurred, one must look at the exceptional biographies of these individuals, who had spent their entire youth ascending through elite athletic academies to represent their country at the highest level. Marcus Rashford, born in Manchester, had already established himself not just as a brilliant forward for Manchester United, but as a prominent national advocate for vulnerable children, successfully forcing major policy changes regarding free school meals for low-income families. His teammate, Bukayo Saka, born in London to Nigerian immigrants, was widely celebrated as one of the most humble, academically gifted, and technically sound young talents in modern soccer, known for his infectious positivity and devotion to community work. Jadon Sancho, hailing from South London, had taken the incredibly brave and unconventional path of moving to Germany as a teenager to play for Borussia Dortmund, proving his world-class caliber in a foreign league before returning to the English spotlight. These were not merely athletes, they were cultural icons who embodied a diverse modern identity that many hoped would define a new era of national solidarity. Yet, when their penalty kicks failed to find the back of the net against a seasoned Italian defense, the public backlash tore through the nation with terrifying speed, demonstrating how quickly an athletic misstep can be weaponized into systemic personal destruction. A historic mural dedicated to Rashford in his hometown of Withington was vandalized with offensive graffiti within hours of the final whistle, serving as a visceral, physical manifestation of the digital vitriol flooding the internet. This disturbing reaction forced a massive grassroots counter-movement, as local residents quickly covered the defaced mural with hundreds of handwritten notes of love, gratitude, and solidarity, transforming a site of hatred into a powerful monument of community resilience. The contrast between the aggressive online abuse and the overwhelming physical support on the streets highlighted a deep societal schism regarding the true nature of modern identity and inclusivity. Major sports institutions, teammates, and managers immediately rallied around the trio, with England manager Gareth Southgate publicly condemning the abuse as completely unforgivable and entirely alien to the values of the team. The incident served as a critical turning point that catalyzed international demands for stricter identity verification laws on major social media channels, forcing technology executives to account for the ease with which anonymous accounts could distribute racial slurs without legal or social consequences. Over time, all three players demonstrated remarkable psychological fortitude, returning to their respective professional clubs, continuing their philanthropic endeavors, and gradually reclaiming their narrative through outstanding athletic performances on the pitch. This ultimate triumph over public vileness mirrors a broader structural evolution occurring across various high-pressure fields, where individuals are learning to construct impenetrable boundaries to protect their personal well-being from the volatile whims of the public. Whether it is elite athletes facing a stadium of critics, digital creators navigating corporate termination, or everyday married couples rejecting traditional financial merging, the core motivation remains exactly the same: a desperate, necessary pursuit of individual self-preservation. When we re-examine the choices made by digital figures like Addison Rae, the systemic pressures of the entertainment industry become undeniably clear. Rae's brief, tumultuous stint with the UFC was not just a standalone event, but a symptom of an era where major corporations are willing to sacrifice professional standards for temporary digital engagement, leaving young creators exposed to specialized audiences that they are fundamentally unprepared to navigate. The backlash she experienced forced her to pivot back to her native digital platforms, where her core audience offered safety, proving that navigating public spaces requires a sophisticated understanding of platform dynamics and audience psychology. This same pursuit of emotional and practical security is precisely what drives modern couples to keep their finances completely separate, transforming marriage from a total traditional absorption of identities into a collaborative partnership between two autonomous adults. By maintaining independent savings and checking accounts, these couples are actively choosing to remove the primary engine of marital discord, ensuring that personal freedom is never compromised by shared financial obligations. They establish highly structured systems where joint expenses, such as rent, mortgages, and utilities, are paid proportionally based on income or split down the middle, while personal wealth remains entirely private and free from parental or marital scrutiny. This financial independence acts as a protective buffer, allowing individuals to pursue personal passions, support their extended families, or make independent career choices without having to seek permission or trigger domestic tension. The evolution of these separate financial models shows that the modern concept of love is becoming less about dependency and far more about mutual respect, clear boundaries, and functional stability. As society continues to accelerate into an unpredictable future filled with economic volatility and relentless digital scrutiny, the old, rigid blueprints for both public careers and private lives are proving wholly inadequate. The individuals who thrive in this demanding environment are those who understand that true resilience requires building strong, defensive boundaries against external pressures, whether that pressure comes from a stadium of angry fans, a corporate media network, or the subtle, daily frictions of a shared domestic life. Ultimately, the stories of financial independence in marriage, the corporate vulnerabilities of internet fame, and the complex battles against public vitriol in international sports are all profoundly interconnected chapters of a single, larger narrative. They illustrate a global shift toward personal sovereignty, where individuals are actively redefining the terms of their engagement with the world around them to safeguard their mental, financial, and emotional integrity. The traditional expectations of complete self-sacrifice and uncritical conformity are being replaced by a highly sophisticated, pragmatic approach to life that prioritizes sustainable well-being over outdated societal ideals. By studying these modern dynamics, we gain invaluable insight into the hidden forces that shape human behavior, relationship longevity, and professional survival in a hyper-connected world that never stops watching, judging, and testing our limits.